Did you know that lenders consider contractors in a different light to regular PAY employees? Well, today we're going to be talking all about how to get a mortgage as a contractor. Hello, welcome back to our channel and podcast. My name is Gemma, and here at WIS we talk about all things relating to money, mortgages and positive money mindset. So if that interests you, then be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the thumbs up. It really helps with our YouTube algorithm and means that you won't miss out on any of our videos. On this week's episode of Let's Talk Money and Mortgages, we have Ifti joining us. For those of you who don't know Ifti is a trained accountant and mortgage advisor who's been in the industry for over 11 years. He is also one of the founding directors here at WIS. Welcome back, Ifti. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm very well, thank you. How are you, Gemma?
I'm very good, thank you. Today we're talking all about contractors. We've been getting a lot of inquiries about contractors recently, so we're due another video, I think. So let's get straight into it. I've got some questions that I think are kind of the sort of top asked questions. So I think today we're going to go through those questions and helping everyone watching find out the answers as well. So the first question that we've got is, I'm a day rate contractor. How easy is it for me to get a mortgage?
I think a lot of people think it's very, very difficult to get a mortgage. I don't think they're wrong, but they're not 100% right either. So contractors are sort of a different category. Over the years, banks have been watching contractors. So they have sort of come up with nice methods to evaluate contractors. There are contractors who can get a mortgage from day one, right? So if they start as a contractor, say today on the Monday, they can get a mortgage starting today, right? So they can apply for a mortgage. So some banks are as flexible as that. Of course, they will have some conditions attached to that. Like, you should have been in the same line of work for a period of, say, 2 years, 3 years. You should have experience in that area because they are mainly talking about experienced contractors here. So for people who are like that, who's had experience in the industry, but just venturing out as a contractor, even they can apply for a mortgage. So in that sense, it's easy for contractors to get a mortgage, but the number of banks who offer mortgages for contractors, a day one contractor, isn't too many, right? So there are only few options out there, but there's a misconception that you cannot get a mortgage. That is wrong, right? You definitely can get a mortgage, but the lenders will be restricted, right? So yeah, it's in that sense, it's quite easy. The normal underwriting sort of will apply. We look at your credit history. They will look at your deposit. They'll look at how well you manage your finances in the past. They will look at those normal underwriting things. But the good thing, a lot of people don't understand this as well, I'm especially talking about these new contractors, is they will base it on your day rate, right? So if your day rate is £500 a day, they will multiply that by the expected number of weeks that you work, right? So for example, if somebody is working as a contractor, they will assume you're working for about 46 weeks a year. Right, so they'll multiply £500 by 5 days and then multiply by 46. So that will be your income.
Oh, that was actually my next question. Can you get a mortgage just based off of your day rate? So the answer is yes, effectively. You can get a mortgage just based off your day rate, can't you?
Yes, that's right. So that's the formula that a lot of banks will use. There is one or two banks will go up to 48 weeks as well, right? So that's quite useful. But again, the difference is some banks will say, yes, we will consider day one contractors. Some banks will say, oh, you should have had contract history of at least a year. So they will say things like that. There will be another bank who will say, okay, if you've done 6 months contracting, we'll consider you, provided you have another 6 months left, right? So those things can vary from bank to bank. But in general, some of the banks will look at, day one contractors as well, which is really, really good. Yeah.
So generally, would you say, if someone's going to ask you, how long do I need to be working as a contractor for before getting a mortgage? Basically, we're saying that if they've got experience in that same line of work, then it can be considered from day one. If not, then you're looking at probably 12 months, right, Ifti?
Yeah, that's right. Oh, so it really depends. I know this is where it's quite interesting as well with contractors. So they will consider day one contractors, but not many banks. But if you have 1 year's history, there will be a whole heap of banks who will say, yeah, I'm going to offer you a mortgage as well, right? So it will open up a lot of other avenues, right? So the number of lenders who will offer you mortgages will be more, right? And there'll be some lenders who will say, okay, we need 2 years history and maybe another 6 months left in your contract. So it will open up even more. The longer you have been in contracting, it will always help you with lenders, right? But what's important is where if you work 2 years, you're probably likely to have, especially if you're working through a limited company, you will have 2 years accounts, or you'll have 2 years self-assessments, right? Or, in our world, we call it a SA 302, which is a tax return summary, or SA 100. So those are all to do with experienced contractors. Now, if you have those, like you have company accounts, you have SA 302s for 2 years, it opens up more options for you, because all the lenders will say, okay, we'll consider you as self-employed and we'll offer you a mortgage.
Yeah.
So they'll look at that option as well, right? So the more experienced you are, it opens up more options for you, right? A lot of contractors, especially if you're working through a limited company, they will take minimum salary and minimum dividend. And often if they are married and their spouse not working, they will share the income as well, right? So your income is often halved, right? So, but where the banks looks at it, they will ignore that. Then they will look at your day rate, right? Just because you're working on 400 pounds or 200 pounds, whatever it is, they will look at that number.
Yeah.
So that's why, there is a lot of options for contractors, right? So if you take a self-employed client, you're only looking at SA 302s or company accounts. But if you're a contractor, you can go with the SA 302s, the company accounts route. You can also look at your contractor day route. So there's three options you have. So, it's a nice place to be in.
Getting your mortgage online doesn't have to be complicated. At WIS, our website will help guide you through step by step. Our fully qualified advisors can help you get the most suitable mortgage for you. Then you can relax, safe in the knowledge that WIS are working in the background to get your mortgage approved. WIS. Online mortgages made simple.
We also have lots of questions normally about, does it matter if I've been contracting inside and then outside and then inside again? How does the lender look at that? And does that affect anything?
A very good question. This inside-outside thing only started a few years ago, right? Because there were some legislation changes around this. And the banks, to be honest, got very confused, right? Because they didn't know how to assess people inside IR35. Because the traditional rules with inside IR35 is where people work through a umbrella company or an agency payroll sort of thing, right? So with that, the underwriting was very strict. But then quickly banks realized that, they're doing the same thing, but it's just the structure is different, right? So as soon as they realized that, banks started adapting to that as well. So now it's become a little bit more lenient compared to before, if you were inside or outside IR35. So quite often they give you the option to switch, right? So long as you're showing that you are a contractor, there will be banks who will be satisfied. I'm not saying everybody will be, right? Because they will look at it, case by case, by merit, because banks have something called lending criteria. We also have something called special exceptions, right? Sometimes, they sign it off as an exception as well, right? So you can look at it. A good experienced broker will know who to reach out for and how to make this work, right? That's the beauty of it. So yes, things have become much easier over the last few months. So there should be more options, even if you keep switching.
All right. And another question that we get quite frequently is, how long do I need to have left on my current contract before applying for a mortgage?
Again, that's a very good question. This depends from bank to bank. The norm in the industry is, I think you can get away with 6 weeks with some lenders, right? So if you have 6 weeks left, provided you've had some contracting history, 6 weeks left, they will consider. But some lenders will say, no, actually, we need 3 months left. Some actually say we need 6 months left, right? So it really depends from lender to lender. But in general, if you have 6 weeks left, it's a conversation you can have. But like I said, sometimes banks do something called bespoke underwriting, or they sign off certain exceptions, right?
Yeah.
Some time ago, I had a client who only had 4 weeks left in the contract. The client does not sign off his contract until the very last minute, but he's been with the client for the last 6 years, right? So we had a conversation with the bank saying, look, this is a scenario I have to consider. And the bank said, fine, you can apply. We sign it off as an exception, right?
Yeah.
So we can do that with bespoke underwriting. So if you do have situations like that, it's always good to speak to an advisor, because sometimes the general rule does not work for you.
And how can us here at WIS help our contractors get mortgages? Because I'm not sure if everybody knows, but we're not just all about mortgages. We also deal with the umbrella side of things. We've got an accountancy side, haven't we? So how can we help our customers?
Yeah, I think you've answered part of the question, Gemma, right? So WIS, we have been doing accounting for a long time. We have a sizable amount of contractor clients that we deal with. WIS has a separate company called WIS Umbrella. It's a separate company altogether. But we have experience with working with these clients, right?
Yeah.
So quite often we do mortgages for umbrella customers who are part of WIS. We also do mortgages for contractors who are part of WIS, right? So we have a lot of experience in that area. I think that's something we can bring in and use, right? Because contracting is not like the past before. It has changed. The space has changed quite a lot, right? To be honest, we also always have to keep ourselves updated because banks are still changing, right? Because there are nowadays people who do 2 contracts. There are people, like you said, they keep switching, right? Inside, outside, 2 outside contracts, overseas contracts where they earn in a different currency, one full-time contract, one part-time contract. There are 2 contracts, but they get subcontractors. So the space has changed quite a lot,
Yeah.
right? And obviously with these IR35 changes, even that's complicated things more, right? So sometimes you need that person who has that specialist skill to help you out.
Yeah.
Because it's no longer say, here's my contract, I earn £300 a day, can you get me a mortgage? Those days have changed quite a lot, right? So you probably want to speak to an advisor on these ones. And especially if you're inside IR35, each bank looks at you in a different way, especially if you're working through an umbrella company,
Yeah.
because there are certain deductions some banks take into account, some banks ignore, right?
Yeah.
So, there is a lot of change happen in this space. So it's always best to go to somebody who knows what they're doing.
Yeah, and even with inside and how the umbrella structure is set up and how you get paid, some this sort of, we've had quite a few inquiries where there's been unusual things happening there. So I definitely think it's worth talking to a broker with experience in that area to help, isn't it?
That's right. It's always good to talk to someone who knows that area. Of course, some people walk to their own bank, but again, like I said, bank has their own rules, right? So they will often stick to that. But brokers, through experience, sometimes they know which banks are more suited for that type of contractor. So they will have that knowledge, right? And that should be able to help you get the mortgage. And like I said, sometimes there are exceptions where banks sign off saying, yes, we'll look at this as an exception. So that kind of relationship, experienced mortgage broker will have with the bank, and they should be able to get you if it is doable, right? Because obviously bank needs to agree on that as well, right? So those are the things that sometimes favor you when you're using a broker.
All right, well, thanks, Ifti, again for some more great advice. I just wanted to put a regular reminder out there that these points may or may not be applicable to everybody, so please do check with an advisor to see if they're suitable for you. And if you don't have an advisor, I will leave our WIS contact details down below, as we're always more than happy to help. Another little reminder that as a mortgage is secured against your house or property, it might be repossessed if you do not keep up with the mortgage repayments. Thank you for joining us again today. We'll be back next week with another episode of Let's Talk Money and Mortgages. Have a great day, stay safe, and we'll see you again soon.